Action Duels. This spin-off style of dueling took place during the Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5 series. Action Duels were achieved thanks to the creation of the solid vision technology, which gave real mass to duel monster holograms. Something that would ultimately come back to bite them, as when a psychopath named Zark became a duelist, he would use his very real monsters to do some very real damage to the world. However, ignoring all of that, Action Duels are pretty cool. They were originally created as a way for duelists to interact with their monsters on a tangible field, to create a much more kinetic and action-orientated style of dueling. Say goodbye to two duelists standing in place and dueling. Now, you need to know parkour. But then the question then becomes, what are the rules to Yu-Gi-Oh! Action Duels? Well, let's go through them, shall we? Action Duels can only be played on solid vision fields. This is because a huge machine is required to generate the solid vision. However, later in the series, they would be able to boil this down into a really tiny device. They'd be able to put it inside their duel discs and basically have solid vision on the go. Note as well, there are two settings to solid vision: adult and child. The difference between the two is simply the child variant creates a much safer and softer playing area, reducing the risk of injury for the little ones. Also, while not a necessity, it is good form to recite the Action Duel anthem before a duel. It goes a little something like this. Duelists locked in battle, kicking the earth and dancing in the air alongside their monsters. They storm through this field. Behold, this is the newest and greatest evolution of dueling, Action Duel. And of course, if you are specifically the main character of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5 series, you will also say, ladies and gentlemen. To initiate an Action Duel, an action field spell must be played prior to the duel. Action fields come in a variety of different types. They have no effects in-game. However, the aesthetic of the artwork is what generates the field, and that will determine what the field looks like, the type of platforms that will appear during the duel. Basically, everything is tied to what the artwork of the field spell looks like. When an action duel begins, a variety of action cards are dispersed across the field. These cards can be picked up at any time during a duel, meaning each duelist is allowed to maneuver away from the starting spots that they started the duel in. However, you might now be asking, what is an action card? Well, action cards come in two different types: spell and trap. When an action card that is a spell is found, it is placed in the hand and can be either used right away as if it was a quick play spell, or held onto for later. Action spells typically bestow the finder with beneficial effects. Things like avoiding a monster attack, reducing damage, or boosting the stats of your own monster. However, when an action card that is a trap is found, it forcefully activates straight away. Action traps are the inverse of action spells. They have detrimental effects to the finder and act as a deterrent from overusing action cards. Action traps do things like reducing your own monster's attacks or even causing damage to yourself. It's up to the duelists to take note of where all of these action cards go at the beginning of a duel. But note that the scattering of the action cards is not random. They land in predetermined spaces that will always go to the same spots of that field spell. If you get used to the Gear Town field, you will know where the beneficial spells are and the negative traps are on the field. It's advantageous for you to get a home field advantage by having a favorite field. To discourage duelists from simply hoarding action cards, a player may only hold one action card at a time. Action cards can be used to pay costs if required. You find an action spell during your turn or during your opponent's turn. You don't want to use it straight away, so you keep it in your hand. Your next turn comes along, you have a card that you can discard a card with to use its effect. Or you can discard the action card if you want to. You can use as many action spell and traps as you want during any phase of a duel. For instance, in the first duel of the Arc 5 series, the sledgehammer attacked Yugioh. Yugioh grabbed an action spell to dodge the attack. He then attacked again, and Yugioh simply picked up another action card and used that one to mitigate the damage. Or even more busted, when Yugioh used Wonder Balloons, he picked up and discarded action spells one after another to get the most out of its effect. There can be multiple of the same action spells and traps on the field at once. Monsters summoned in action duels are tangible, and as such can be interacted with. We covered this earlier, but this means that you can ride on top of your monsters, you can use your monsters to attack your opponent if you want, or even to sort of maneuver the environment to yours or your opponent's detriment or benefit. Things like that, basically. And the reason that maneuvering with your monsters is important is because a duelist/monster can dodge attacks to delay the attack connecting. Similar to how turbo duels work, if you can avoid an attack for long enough, you can buy yourself precious extra seconds to find an action card to possibly get an advantage, or it'll just give you more time to think of a response. And honestly, with this, being able to move around the field and move with your monsters, this is the biggest draw of an action duel. This now means being physically fit is really important to doing well in a duel. So get down to that gym. Note that despite an action field spell being on the field, new field spells can be activated. When this occurs, the terrain is overwritten to match the new field spell, and whatever effects that field spell has are now in play. Saying that as well, the action duel rules are still in place. Duelists have a maximum of 3 minutes per turn. Failing to finish their turn in this time results in a loss. Why do we have a timer incorporated into a duel? Well, it's simple. We don't want people continuously looking for action spells. Find an action spell, use it, let's go find another, let's use that. It takes a bit of time to get to each platform to get your action spells, so if you're locked at only 3 minutes, you've got to quickly do your plays, maybe search for an action card while you're doing your plays as well. You've got to be quick about this, so it makes it much more fair. If the solid vision malfunctions during a duel, then the match automatically ends with no winner. Physically attacking opponents, while frowned upon, doesn't seem to be illegal. Also, using effects to restrict your opponent's movement is also allowed. Bit of a crazy one, but we see a lot of examples of duelists in proper tournaments and just outside of tournaments attacking each other or using card effects to restrict players from grabbing action cards and stuff. For the most part, it seems to be legal, or at the very least, it's not being enforced to stop anyway. So yeah, I guess if you really want to do that, you can. But don't go too far or you'll turn into Zark and you'll just start like murdering people in the middle of a duel. And with that said, the most important final rule I have to mention. My lawyers have asked me to include this when you duel on an action field. Warning, in consideration of participating in the action duel event I intend to duel, I hereby declare that I accept the following terms and conditions. I understand that the event requires high physical activity and that the person intends to participate in the activity requires to be in good health and in proper physical condition. I understand the risks involved, known and unknown, foreseeable or not foreseeable, in participation in this event or activity, which includes injury, disability, being sucked into a trading card or being transported to an alternate dimension, whether caused by actions or inactions, by gross negligence or accident. I understand that I have the right to withdraw any time during the event or any activity on which I am a participant in, should I believe to think that the conditions in the event endangers my safety. I fully accept and assume the risks involved and take accountability for any damages, losses, and or expenses that might be incurred during and as a result of my involvement in the activities of the event. I hereby waive, release, discharge, and covenant not to sue, indemnify, and hold harmless the Yugioh Corporation, its owners, directors, administrators, agents, volunteers, operators, its officers and employees, the sponsors, and the venue of the event in any incident resulting to loss, liability, damage, or damages, claims, causes of action, whether in whole or in part, the negligence by which may be incurred. I assume the inherent and other risks that may result to harm, injury, illness, loss, or death during my participation in any activities of the event. I hereby agree freely, unconditionally, and without inducement or consideration of any nature as an affirmation and consent to the contents of this form by which I will be legally bound. And with that, I hope you all enjoy swinging into action. If you plan on playing this at home, good luck. But other than that, thank you all for watching. Catch you later.